Welcome to Kahani Bar. I am Payal Gandhi Hoon, and today's story is A Service of Love by O. Henry. When one loves one's art, no service seems too hard. That is our premise. This story shall draw a conclusion from it and show at the same time that the premise is incorrect. Joe Larrabee came out of the West Indies with a great ambition for art. At 6, he drew a picture of the town pump with a prominent citizen passing it hastily. This effort was framed and hung in the drugstore window by the side of the ear of corn with an uneven number of rows. At 20, he left for New York with a flowing necktie and capital tied up somewhat closer. Dahlia catheters did things in 6 octaves so promisingly in a pine tree village in the south that her relatives chipped in and sent her north to finish. They could not see her, but that is our story. Joe and Dahlia met at a studio where a number of art and music students had gathered to discuss chiaroscuro, Wagner, music, Rembrandt's works, pictures, Waldteufel wallpapers, Chopin, and Oolong. Joe and Dahlia fell in love. That is a story, but this story is only to tell you about a service of love. They got married and set up housekeeping in a flat. It was a lonesome flat, something like a A minor chord, one that had little space and great deal of minor. But they were happy, for they had their art and they had each other. Joe was studying painting with the great magister. Do not forget the I. You get it in the bill. His fees were high. His lessons were light. His highlights, you understand. Dahlia was studying under Rosenstock. You know his repute as a disturber of the piano keys. They were mighty happy as long as their money lasted. So is every well. We won't go into that. But after a while, art flagged a little. It sometimes does, even if some switchman doesn't flag it. Everything going out and nothing coming in, as the vulgarians say, began to take on a decidedly serious aspect. When one loves one's art, no service seems too hard. So Dahlia said she must give music lessons to keep the chafing dish boiling. For the dear art's sake, said she, I must, and you must go on with your painting, Joe. You can't be a great artist without giving your whole time to it. It's the only way. Joe, his chin resting on his hand, studied her face for a while. Then he got up and began to pace the floor. I don't like it, he said, but I guess it's all right. It's no fun for you to have to teach, but I can't let you go on giving lessons and go to class myself. It would be better for me to get a job. No, said Dahlia. I want you to keep on. I'll get the pupils. I've been taking lessons from Rosenstock for a long time. There's a family on 71st Street that wants lessons. The daughter, Clementina, is going to be a great pianist, and her father is very rich. Well, said Joe, if you get the pupils, I'll keep on. But if you don't, I'm going to get a job. Dahlia found pupils. She had a rich pupil on 71st Street. She was paid well for her lessons, and Joe went on with his painting. Every evening after her lessons, Dahlia would tell Joe about her pupil, Clementina, and the beautiful house, and the conservatory, and the polite father, and the tea and cakes, and the maid who opened the door. Joe would tell her about the great magister and the other students, and the wonderful things he was learning, and the great future that was opening up before him. And so they lived happy and busy and loving their art and each other. But after a while, Dahlia began to look tired, and Joe noticed that her hands were getting rough and red. What's the matter with your hands, Dee? He asked one evening. Oh, nothing, said Dahlia, smiling. The piano keys are sometimes rough. Clementina makes me practice scales for hours. Joe looked at her hands again and said nothing. The next week, Joe came home with a bandage on his hand. "What's the matter with your hand, Joe?" asked Dahlia. "Oh, nothing much," said Joe. "The paint was too hot. I burnt it a little." The next day, Dahlia came home with her hand in a bandage. "What's the matter?" asked Joe anxiously. "Oh," said Dahlia, "the Welsh rarebit in the kitchen was too hot and I burnt my hand." Joe sat down and looked at her for a long time. Then he got up and put his arms around her. "Dee," he said, "what have you been doing?" Dahlia began to cry. "I couldn't get any pupils," she sobbed. "So I got a job in a laundry. I've been ironing shirts. Today I burnt my hand on a hot iron. But I didn't want you to give up your painting, Joe, so I told you about Clementina." Joe held her close. "And I," he said, "have been working in the same laundry. I've been firing the engine in the basement. I burnt my hand on the boiler. But I didn't want you to give up your music, Dee, so I told you about the great Magister." They both laughed and then they both cried. And so it was that each had been working in the laundry for the other's sake, each believing the other was pursuing the dream. When one loves one's art, no service seems too hard. But when one loves, the service is not for art at all. It is for love. That was A Service of Love by O. Henry. Thank you for listening. This is Payal signing off now. If you enjoyed the story, stay with us for more heartwarming, timeless tales. Take care until we meet again for yet another story.